Guys, this week is the last week of Season 19. Not only is it the last week to complete your Lightfall prep, it's also the only week in which the Wendigo GL3 grenade launcher is dropping. Now, there's a lot of changes coming to heavy grenade launchers next season, and you're going to want to get a good roll of this one, guys. Essentially, heavy GLs are having their damage increase versus champions, mini bosses, and vehicles by 20%, and against minors by 40%. They also are going to be improving the projectile collision, making it slightly easier to land hits. They're increasing the blast radius by 1 meter. And a final note is that Parasite is going to be unaffected. Now, that's not to say that Anarchy and other grenade launchers aren't going to be absolutely nasty, but Wendigo here is going to be positioned very nicely for next season. And I actually want to go over a few roles here before we get into the Warden Strike and how you want to optimize your runs. But the role that I would go for, guys, on Wendigo, and again, we're going to be doing damage tests on Templar this week on what the best Wendigo role actually is, both in terms of total damage and DPS. But combinations that I'm looking at are, of course, things like Explosive Light with Chain Reaction. Like, that to me is a nasty ad clearing machine. You can even do Chain Reaction and Full Court together. Cascade, which is another trait there, states that final blows or sustained precision hits with another weapon increases this weapon's rate of fire. Guys, this is literally blow your load, the perk. We've seen it on auto rifles, SMGs, etc. It is a fantastic perk. That could potentially be the DPS play. Combine that with something like Field Prep and just unload on a boss. And again, what makes this weekend so special is that the adept version of this weapon will be dropping, and on top of that, we do have unstoppable grenade launchers this season, meaning things like Stunning Recovery will be proccing when you stun an unstoppable champion. All around, guys, Wendigo is looking to be very, very good next season. Now let's get into Warden of Nothing. Now, this is not a super fast Nightfall, but it's not bad at all. You can look to be completing this Nightfall in about sub 13 minutes. We got it down to about 12 and a half minutes almost. You can definitely suck it down a little further. And as we get deeper in the weeks, if you come by our stream, I'm sure we're going to be able to get that sub 10-minute run locked in with the right strategy. Now let's talk about modifiers. You've got the Shocker modifier that when defeated, goblins spawn arc pools that cause damage over time. There's actually a lot of things that just cause damage over time, which can really mess you and your teammates up, which is exactly why I'm using my build. We're going to go over that in just a second. You're also going to be dealing with barrier, overload, and unstoppable champions. Pretty much the spectrum. And it's actually going to be 10 barriers, 4 overloads, and 7 unstops. Now the burn is solar, which is why I do recommend rocket launchers, 1 Gallahorn, 2 other legendary rockets. If you want to rock an exotic elsewhere, it does quick work. At the same time, if you want to just all rock galleys, by all means, go right ahead. And the shields you're going to be dealing with is solar and void shields. Now, let me just get into my build real quick. This is more of my defensive build. I like this one a lot because it's a build designed around keeping my team alive as well as myself. The weapons I'm using is actually Wither Horde for unstoppable champions and, of course, damage over time. I'm also using this in combination with the Weaken Clear mod for that debuff. The bow I'm using is my Strident Whistle. No, not my God Roll. You bastards made sure I had to delete that. But don't worry, we have Legacy focusing next season. And hopefully I get that incandescent roll back. And my rocket launcher is this Hezen's Vengeance time loss version. It's not the best roll, but it does solar damage, which pairs very nicely with Gallahorn and those Wolfpack rounds. Now, the subclass I'm using, despite this being a solar burn, is actually Void 3.0. Now, I mentioned a second ago how so much in this Nightfall does damage over time, and it will mess your team up. Like, literally just dying and waiting on a revive can set you back a bunch. I'm taking advantage of Void 3.0 with aspects like Bastion, where casting your barricade grants overshield to yourself and nearby allies. This in combination with max resilience is so beneficial. I'm also using Offensive Bulwark, where while you have an overshield or you're inside a Ward of Dawn, your grenade charges significantly faster. You also have increased melee range and damage, and the melee final blows extends the duration of your overshield. Combined with fragments like Echo of Persistence, where your buffs last longer, Echo of Mining, where your void grenades weaken, and Echo of Remnants, where the lingering grenade of your choice lasts longer as well. And I'm also rocking Vortex grenades with my shield throw and a tower barricade. Now, the reason why this is so good is anytime I'm in trouble or my teammates are in trouble, I drop a barricade. This gives us some overshield. This is such a good build to have just to keep your team alive. Granted, we're using things like Well of Radiance, other means of survival, but considering we also do like Grandmaster carries, which we're going to be doing all this week, and if you have enough eggplants, you can come by the stream, guys. You can redeem them for a Grandmaster run. But I like to use this build because it's just a safeguard build. Could I utilize a more offensive build? Sure. But this in combination with Heart of Inmost Light, which is what I'm taking advantage of, allows me to constantly throw grenades, constantly have my barricade, thus spreading overshield and keeping my team alive, and still being pretty powerful on the offensive side. Now, the mods of choice that I'm utilizing, again, unstoppable grenade launchers and anti-barrier bow. I'm also using high energy fire in combination with the artifact mod Countercharge, where you actually become charged with light whenever you or a member of your fire team stuns a champion. This pretty much always allows you to have a buff up, guys, guys. Highly suggest having that, and you can even use things like that in combination with powerful friends, and you can rebound that buff to your teammates. Now, to take advantage of wells, I'm utilizing Element and Ordnance and Bountiful Wells, just so that when I do get grenade kills, I'm able to pick those up and top off some ability energy. And the last class item mod I have on is the Lord Kelvin's Basilisk, where your Void and Stasis grenades cause disruption, delaying ability regeneration, and lowering combatant damage output. Again, this is for overload champions. Essentially, I have the ability here with my build to counter all champion types and have the survivability that Void 3.0 grants. As for other classes, Lester's rocking Well of Radiance. We'll probably jump on Hunter this week, as I actually want to see how Hunter can handle this Nightfall. Again, you can't go wrong with things like Tether. But again, with all builds, keep in mind, going for that super offensive build sounds good until you find your team getting wiped. So I like to take a more conservative approach and always maintain those sub 15-minute runs every single time. Now, a basic walkthrough of this Nightfall. When making your way to the first area, you'll come across 3 Vex in the tunnels before you get into the main first room. Now, in this room, there will be a few Vex Goblins, as well as 1 Overload Minotaur. Keep in mind, throughout this entire Nightfall, there are going to be explosive barrels throughout. Be very careful. Matter of fact, just take a moment to shoot them every single time you see them. Even if there isn't a bunch of ads next to them, they pose too big of a risk to you and your fire team. Like, it's literally an insta-kill if you're next to them. Now, upon wiping these ads and that Overload Champion, you're going to go through the door and hack the computer, and then make your way through the tunnels while dodging the trains and other Vex Goblins. You'll then drop down into another train tunnel section. Keep in mind, guys, there's a goblin down here. Definitely deal with that guy before you pop your Sparrow, or it will instantly shred your Sparrow and you'll die. After killing that guy, you can then jump on your Sparrow, go all the way at the end, and you'll be met with, again, more explosive barrels and a yellow bar Hydra. You'll also have an unstoppable champion and some Cabal. Deal with these guys one at a time. And again, the combination of these solar rockets with Galley is so good. And if you don't have a Hizen's Vengeance, there's other solar rockets out there. You've got Coduella, which I know is not necessarily the best, but still better than nothing. You also have Ascendancy, Roar of the Bear. So you have other options of rocket launchers. So just check your vault. But this combination with Galley is so good. Now, as you make your way up to the large tunnel, this is going to be the tunnel where you have 2 trains on either side. You're going to have some enemies here at the front with a barrier champion. Deal with that barrier champion and proceed to move up. Midway, you'll see some other ads. And then as you get to the end of the tunnel, you'll see an unstoppable Cabal and a barrier Colossus all the way at the end. Luckily, they're all kind of tied up with each other, so you can deal with this unstoppable Cabal by himself and then proceed to move up and deal with that barrier champion. Now, I definitely advise someone on your team rocking Lucent Finisher. It works on champions. Someone on the squad needs to rock it, and yes, it does double dip with Aeon Gauntlets if you really want to just produce as much heavy ammo as possible. But you can run through there, get those finishes off on those champions, and then proceed to produce a ton of heavy ammo for your teammates. Now, as you exit the tunnels into the next room, this is actually going to be full of Vex Goblins, Hobgoblins, as well as 2 barrier Hobgoblins, 1 on the left platform and then 1 on the right, as well as a yellow bar Hydra in the center of the room. Fellas, utilize your supers. You will get it back quickly. I literally pop my bubble here and there. This buffs our damage. Again, if you're popping your bubble, combo it with your barricade so that you can grant your teammates overshield when they dip in and out of the bubble. And sometimes I like to pop my bubble in a way which shields us from one side of the room. So if I want to focus on just the ads on the left, I'll pop it to like the right of a barrier. That way the bubble can soak the damage, and then I can purely focus on that barrier champion or those ads on that one side. We personally like to take out the champions first, and then we take out the Hydra afterwards in combination with all the different ads. Now, upon killing all of these enemies, a boss Minotaur will teleport in the room, as well as a number of ads. We actually like to push up to that middle platform. That way we can see that Minotaur. He's actually really easy to kill, guys. Like literally 1 Galley, 2 other rockets with solar burn makes quick work of him. The beautiful thing is the moment you kill him, all the other ads will despawn. Next, you'll move up the elevator. As you continue through this Nightfall, you'll see some Cabal here and there. For my Heart of Emos Light Titans, feel free to always utilize your grenades and abilities. You get them back very quickly. Now, as you push through the Cabal, there will be 2 unstoppable Cabals. Normally, they rush you 1 at a time, so deal with those guys. I wouldn't go for the finish on the first one. I would actually deal with the first one unless you can bring them all the way to the back, but deal with that guy and then proceed to try to bait the next unstoppable champion to you. Again, guys, easy work here, man, if you're comboing everything correctly. With a Horde against unstoppable champions, an unstoppable grenade launcher is so good. Even if you miss, just the pull on the ground will get the stun off. Now, you're also going to have some Scion snipers here and there on the balconies. Deal with those guys, and again, watch out for the explosive barrels. And at the end of the room, you're actually going to see some Void shielded Cabal. Not a champion, but if you're rocking a Void subclass, you might want to save an ability for these guys. Now, after defeating them, you could then move up the elevator, bringing you to the Prison of Elders section. Now, there is going to be an outright war happening up here. You got Vex and Cabal on either side. You got an unstoppable champion, an overload champion, as well as 3 barrier champions, 2 of which are Hobgoblins. 1 is a Colossus. Now, the best best thing you do is really just let them handle each other, but make that overload champion kind of a priority number one. He will mess you up quickly, and he moves so damn fast. After dealing with that guy, if you can prioritize the two hobgoblins on the left while the Colossus and Unstoppable are entertaining each other, by all means do that. But if not, if the Unstoppable is rushing you, which he most likely will, you need to take care of the Unstoppable too. So Unstoppable, overload. I know that makes all three barriers take a look at you, but you can actually go to the left side, bringing those two barrier champions in focus and keeping that Colossus out of your way, and then you can single out that Colossus afterwards. The goal here, guys, is to focus one champion at a time. Now, round two will actually begin once all the enemies are dead. This is the section where you actually have to dismantle mines, very similar to that of Prison of Elders. Vex will start walking out of the left and right doors to point A, and a barrier champion will also spawn on the right here as well. Now, once A is captured, we normally rush B. I know B and C both appear. If you feel very confident that you can take C by yourself, don't do it. I literally popped a bubble over there and got killed in my bubble. Now, granted, back in the day, I used to rock Invis Hunter, and you can go for the caps by yourself. But if you're not rocking Invis, go to point B, cap that point, and then move to point C. Now, during this process, an overload champion will spawn, and it'll spawn between like points B and C, and it'll actually spawn as you're capping B. For platinum, deal with that overload champion. I will say on C point, the scary ad that's over there is a Vex Minotaur with a void shield. So be careful if you're planning on going over there and sparking up a 1v1. Now, the boss will actually spawn in after a few seconds once all 3 points are captured. You can actually set up on the walkway where the boss spawns and immediately destroy him. And honestly, that's the best way to do it because everything will despawn. You don't have to worry about any of the ads being spawned in at this time. Again, one galley shot, couple rockets, easy work. Now you're gonna make your way to the boss room. No, you don't have to go down this elevator shaft one at a time. That's been fixed. We literally all go down at the same time. I know back in the day, you would actually die if everyone was in this little bubble together. Now, in the boss room, you have 4 champions, 2 barriers, 1 overload, and 1 unstoppable. Honestly, I like to just work left to right. Granted, that kind of goes out the window when the unstoppable or the overload champion completely aggros to you. Overload champion is kind of a priority, so if he does start coming to the left side, don't ignore him. Deal with him first, and then deal with the other champions one at a time. And it really just comes down to which ones are being aggressive towards you. You can pretty much go from champion to champion based on that. By the way, you don't need a bunch of buffs here at the end. You can literally pop supers. As long as you have either 1 weld or 1 bubble when it comes to doing boss damage, you're completely fine. Now, upon dealing with these champions, the boss will finally spawn in the room. This is the servitor. It's pretty much an instant melt if you have enough ammo. Pop a well or a bubble. Honestly, guys, a couple Galahorn shots and some other rocket shots that are dealing solar damage, it's an instant melt. And if you're seeing us struggling here on damage, it's actually because our third left because he was conserving our checkpoint. Big shout out to Bear. We were actually bumming off of his checkpoint so that we could create this guy. But again, if all 3 of us were doing damage back to back, a couple Galahorn shots and probably 4 legendary rocket shots, 2 from each person, would easily kill this servitor. So guys, that is our guide for Warden of Nothing. 100% you want to take time out this week to get Wendigo. It is a very good grenade launcher. If you're looking for a squad, feel free to come by our Discord. Folks are going to be running this all week long. This is a very good GL. It's positioned very well for next season. We're going to be testing out rolls as we obtain them. And again, with all of these adept weapons, the beautiful thing about them is they have access to adept mods. By the way, if you're interested in the builds that we're utilizing in today's video, I will list not only my build down below, but also Les's. I'm also going to list a hunter build, which will essentially just utilize Invis and going for finishes, more or less playing a support role for your teammates. So guys, good luck. If you're looking to get some runs with us, come by our Twitch. We'll be grinding all week. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.